So before I actually begin, the first advice I'll give you, which is advice you should take for your life, is do not go to a theme park with Tara. Do not. It is a bad idea. Don't listen to her. Trust me, I've been there and I've done that. Do not. All right, thank you very much, Tara, for introducing me. So you can see today I'm going to be talking about 6 apps, 1 code with Ionic. Everybody's at this point is probably like, what does that even mean? And hopefully in the next few minutes we will dissect that and I will get to show you what that actually means. So without further ado, I'm just going to get done with the boring bit. Forgive me and my chopstick legs. My name is Sani Yusuf. I'm based in London. I'm Nigerian. And so I run a small consultancy called Hybrid, which basically is just me, myself, and myself just doing stuff. And I'm also a trainer and a software engineer, so I do tend to go around sometimes to train people. I really, really love open source community, and I like to grow communities. I think open source really changed my life personally, and I'm a firm contributor in a lot of open source stuff. And the UI School is a little project I'm working on. I'm going to share a bit more about that at the end, and I'm one of the lead instructors on that. And yeah, has anybody here seen the Avatar movie? If you've probably seen me talk, you probably know I'm gonna do this. Exactly. And I know like there's the whole Black Panther thing going on, like with how great of a movie that is, but if you've not seen Avatar, we cannot be friends. You're not invited to my wedding. You're not even invited to look at my wedding's website because you haven't seen Avatar. So go see Avatar. All right. So this is how I'm going to start my talk. I'm going to start my talk by telling you a bit of a story about the web. The web is everywhere today, right? The web is in our mobile devices. Everything in your mobile device, a lot of things run the web. You know, when you want to go and buy a ticket, most of the time you would go to a website on your mobile phone. You know, you go to something.com, or if you don't have an app for something, you'd use the web, the mobile. We also have web in our standard, traditional, web applications that we're used to. So basically, if you go to just a normal standard website, the web is what powers that. I think everybody knows that. We also have standard desktop applications running web. So there are a lot of applications out there today that are actually built with the web, and a lot of you are using them, but you don't even know. And they actually built with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And Internet of Things. I don't need to say much about this. All I need to say is Yuri Shekhet. If you want to know about how the web powers Internet of Things, there's a guy, he's at this conference, sorry about this, Yuri. Just go and literally ask him everything. Like, Internet of Things is powered by the web now, and Yuri is at the forefront of that. And on the server side, any server-side developers here? Exactly, we have some of them. Look at them. Exactly. Server-side guys are cool. I love server-side. You probably know about Node.js, how Node literally changed the ecosystem of server-side development with JavaScript with the web. And when I say the web, I use that term loosely. Normally, anything that falls between HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, without getting into semantics, is normally what we would consider web in terms of that. But also TV applications. A lot of the TV applications you use, like when you actually buy a smart TV, which I think everybody at this point probably has a smart TV or has used a smart TV. And a lot of those applications are actually powered by web technologies. And then you talk about proprietary devices. Now, what do I mean by proprietary devices? Some of the applications that power Xbox, they are built with the web. If you go to you're on a plane, and you're like me, you don't have a lot of money, so you're probably flying coach class, and you want to watch a movie to, remind yourself why the guys ahead of you are much cooler than you. You're probably going to watch a movie or play a game just to, make yourself feel better. Some of those things are actually built with the web. A lot of them actually lately. And if you use some of these planes that use tablets, you'd actually see it because if you press a lot of things fast enough, you'll probably break it and see a local host 404. Yeah, don't do that though. I'm not sure how that will go down if you break the entertainment system live while flying. So we're gonna play a game. I need everybody to play this game with me. I want you to go to this website called sli.do. It's the easiest thing, right? So I want you to go to sli.do, and when you get to sli.do, I'm gonna trip on myself. I want you to enter this event code ngVikings, right? Everybody good? Has anybody successfully seen the game? Right? And you see a question there, right? Okay. So in a minute, we're going to answer the question game. Everybody good? All right. Just sli.do. sli.do. And the code for that is ngVik. ngVik. It doesn't have to be uppercase or lowercase. You just go there. Are we all good? All right. So the game is, can you spot the web application? That's the name of my game. So, first we have Untapped. Any beer drinkers in the house? Exactly. Now we found all the alcoholics. Good. So next is Uber. Next is an app called Sworkit. Anybody know Sworkit? Next is this. Everybody knows this guy, right? Because you're probably pissed off every day for this guy. Someone somewhere is pissing you off with this guy. And we know this guy too, right? If you don't know that guy, I'm really worried for you right at this point in time. So I have these 5 applications. Can you spot the web application? So you know what we're going to do? Actually, we're going to make this interactive. So you can go ahead and start actually voting. And we could go ahead and see how everyone is doing. And we can check the infographics of that. And we can see. So here we can see the infographics. Like as you're voting, we can see some people saying Untapped, some people saying none of them, some people say just VS Code, Slack Web, Uber. Actually, we have a good amount of people saying all of them are built with the web. So what's the answer? What's the answer? Let's go and see what the answer actually really is. So, all those applications are actually built with web technologies. So this is probably the first time I'm actually doing this poll. I'm like, a lot of people are like, we know. Exactly. So I need to switch up my game up. But the main thing is not to say who knows what here. That's not my aim for that particular game. It's just to show you how different people have different beliefs or mindset about what a web application is. Some people clearly said all. Some people voted none. Some people said just this one or that one. And you can see how the variation in terms of what people think a web application is. And so we don't really have one definition of what a web application is. And that's what I'm trying to say there. And so some of you might be like, yeah, I still do not believe you. It cannot be true. You're trying to tell me Uber is built on the web? Okay, I hear you. Just go on a journey with me. Everybody trusts Gandalf. So if you can go on a journey with Gandalf, go on a journey with me. So it's all about devices, right? It's all really literally about devices. So on our apps today run on different devices. What is an application? Today you have an app that you use at work, at home, at what's it called? There's actually this dating app, very famous dating app called Tinder. Apparently, so I was reading about how they they built their application with Angular, and one of the things is they made this new mode because they now have a desktop version of the app, and they made a new mode called work mode, which basically, while you could be like trying to look for potential dating matches, but if your manager was walking by, you would click work mode and it would bring up a spreadsheet that made it look like you were actually doing work. Don't ask me how I know this, but this is a real feature, and that's a web application, But anyways, if you notice it, depending on what app you're using, the functionality does not change. Once again, I repeat, the functionality of your app does not change. What actually changes is the experience, and that's based on screen size and input devices. For example, my PowerPoint here, I would normally use arrow keys and mice, but here, thanks to Mr. Beck here, I'm able to use this. And this is an input device. I'm able to interact with the same application. And it's the experience that changes. The application's functionality does not change. And so you can see this one application on multiple platforms. And this is Spotify, which a lot of people use. Now I can be at home, right? I could be playing with Spotify, and I could be on my, on my way to work. I could be using it on my phone, but I'll be controlling that with my, smartwatch. I get into my car. What do? I use Spotify at the same time in my car application. And I'm just I get to my office, while I'm having a meeting, I'm listening to Spotify on my tablet. I sit down on my desktop, what do? I have Spotify on the web installed. I get back home, I'm watching TV, I still use Spotify. I access my same playlist, everything. So the functionality has not changed. I'm still doing the same thing, listening to music, but the experience has changed. And that is very, very key, that experience is very smooth. So what's the issue here? You're probably saying, okay, I'm talking about all these things, but what exactly are you getting at? Like, can you just get to the point, Sani? What is the issue? The problem is trying to move and support different experiences is the single most expensive thing you can do, right? Because first of all, you want to have Android and iOS to start off with, right? Because you want to support the cool guys that have iPhones, the iPhones are great devices where every year they remove something, Last year they removed the headphone jack, now they remove the button, next year they'll remove the screen. People would still buy. Exactly. Look, I have Alexa iPhone. Exactly. So for you to support iOS, you need to find somebody that knows Swift. Normally they're very evil and they don't like people. And they're going to charge you a lot of money, And then you want to support your Android. And you have to go find somebody that knows how to write Java. And not just Java, knows actually how to work with the SDK. And half the time they don't want to work full-time for you because they're probably better paid as contractors. And I don't blame them. And then you go to the web, which is where we are, and you have to find somebody with JavaScript to support your web application, and you pay them a lot of money. And then tomorrow, your Mac users complain that they want a Mac application. What do? You find somebody that knows how to write the simple, ugliest language in the world, which is Objective-C. And then you have to pay them a lot of money. And then you have probably 90% of your users on Windows, and some of them have things like Windows 10 and Windows 8, and they want a native application. And Microsoft tells you you have to do that as well. The problem is this keeps growing with new devices. Tomorrow Alexa, tomorrow Ubuntu OS, we don't know. So that's the problem. And then suddenly this guy gets hired. The new manager that gets hired? That when the new manager comes and he's so cool and everything, the guy with all the spreadsheets, like, I want to see spreadsheets for the past 5 years. I want to know what you've been doing. You know that guy. We all know that guy. He asks for spreadsheets for everything. He tells you that there's no budget for all these applications now. And he asks you to find a way to reuse the current code you have across multiple platforms. And this new guy comes, right? And this is you at that point. Because you don't know what to do. Like, what do you actually do? How do you do that? And you start to think. Because when we're stressed, we start to think, is there a better, more efficient way for us to do cross-platform development? And you start to think. You say, oh, on every device today, you can run the web. You can run JavaScript in some way, right? Any device. You either have a browser or an access to web technologies. And their web technologies are relatively easier to use. Have you tried learning Objective-C? Don't do it. It's not a great idea. But JavaScript you can pick up, and within 1-2 weeks, you kind of know what you're doing, kind of thing. It's so easy to work with web technologies. You might not need to work with JavaScript. You can work with HTML. You can work with CSS. There's so many. You can work with WebGL. It's relatively easier to adopt, right? And if you need developers for the web, you can find them pretty much everywhere. Like, you're spoiled for choice because the web is the single biggest pool of developers. And you start to think, why can't I just use the web everywhere, right? It took you long enough. Good. So let's create a typical use case here. We're going to create $1 billion startup today. Right here, right now, live on stage. We're going to create $1 billion startup. So we want to create this application, right? I think it's fair to say that we want to support, iOS, Android, and Windows, right? We want to support that. And for the web, we want to make sure that we have a web version. We want to make sure we have a mobile web so that when our users don't want to go on that. We also want to make sure that we have a PWA, which I will talk about a little bit more. And for the guys that don't have mobile phones still and want to live on their desktop, we want to make sure we support Windows, OS X, and Linux. Everybody agrees that this is a very practical use case? Okay. So let's go ahead and see. Let's solve the mobile problem first, because most of the users today are mobile. Okay, this is what we want to achieve. We want to code once with web technologies. We want to make sure we're coding once. We want to make sure that that code we write is reusable across all the web technologies we're targeting. We want to be able to access hardware features, accelerometer, Bluetooth, GPS, Wi-Fi, NFC, all these things, right? Because a mobile device has all these outputs. The camera, the microphone. And we want to be able to access the same way across all devices. We don't want to have to write different types of code, right? So let's go ahead and do that. To do that, you need something called Cordova. Cordova is basically this. It's originally used to call PhoneGap. Today, PhoneGap still exists as a different thing in a different context. Open source and it's part of the Apache Foundation, right? And basically, Cordova is what bridges the gap between mobile devices and web applications and mobile API layers. Because the problem with the web is, if you try to do something like access certain devices, certain hardware features of your mobile phone from the web, it's very difficult. Even today, like something as simple as just streaming from the camera is still a bit difficult. It's changing, APIs are coming along, but it's still not there yet. While if you're creating a native application, you have instant access to this, right? So this is what Cordova does. Cordova sits and makes that bridge for you. It supports all major operating systems, and it has a plugin interface that you yourself can extend to add extra features. So have we really solved our mobile problem? Well, yes and no. This is why we haven't actually solved the problem. Mobile devices have different UI SDK libraries. The iOS has the iOS SDK, the UI kit. The Android has the Android SDK. The Microsoft Windows Phone, if you still own a Windows Phone, has the Windows Universal SDK, right? And this is Facebook on typical device. The user experience is different, and some even devices have buttons. So this is Facebook on, what's it called? This is Facebook on the iOS, on the Android, and the Windows platform. Now this is the same application, but you can see how they're all different because they have different user experiences, right? On the iOS, you can swipe in from the left. You can't do that on Android. On the iOS, you only have one button. Well, now you don't have any button. While on Android, you have mostly 3 buttons. On Windows Phone, you have something called a search button, which you don't have, dedicated search button. The experience is different. So you cannot give a one-size-fits-all for everybody because everybody expects something different. And that's very, very important. And then we tend to forget tablets or phablets if you have like one of those big phones that's confused, whether it's a tablet or a phone. And you need to support that as well. So how do we support that? How do you reuse at this level? And the question is, let's visualize the issue. If you want to use a native application, you have animations, tabs, buttons, the web view, gestures, all built in for you for free. But if you're on the web, and that native that native app has access to all these features, NFC, all those hardware features. If you're on the web, you don't have access to that. This is where Cordova comes in. Cordova basically allows you to create a web view containing app, and then use Cordova to have access to these guys. And then you come ahead and you write your HTML code. And that's what you do. So, but how do you still achieve that user experience across platforms? This is where I will introduce you to something called Ionic. Now, what is Ionic? It's simply a web SDK for creating mobile applications. It's open source. It's built with the web, so you don't have to learn anything new. And it supports Android, iOS, and Windows Universal as first-class citizens. So this is what the Ionic Stack looks like. You write your code, you use Ionic, that sits on top of Angular, and everything is contained in the web view. And then the web view, of course, sits in the native container. And then Cordova is your master here. You use Cordova to communicate between different layers. So features of Ionic. What are the features? Because everybody wants to know, how cool is Ionic? It has auto-adjusting components. So this is the same application running across multiple platforms, the same exact code, but it automatically takes and looks like its individual platform. It has a powerful Ionicons icon library. It has a customizable and configurable features, so you can configure to your needs. And it has a first-class CLI tool. If you don't like, CLIs are very important. Ionic has its own CLI tool that does all your, bundling and the Webpack and all of those, Sean Larkin type of things for you. And SAS pre-processing, tri-script transpilation, and error reporting. And it also does AOT, build, shaking, and all of that for you. Yes, we tend to forget that half of the world, or well, 1 billion people in the world read from this side to this side. And we easily forget that. And right to left support is their internationalization. Imagine if I came to Finland where you guys speak Finnish and I was just like, oh, it only supports English. That would be pretty bad. But it supports internationalization, so you can actually support multiple languages and you can actually extend and use the Pro Tools. So who's using Ionic? Because we want to know who are the cool stuff. Over 4 million apps have been generated, more than 110 countries in the communities, more than 13,000 Slack members. That number's actually recently gone up to 15K. And we have a very active forum and Stack Overflow, 30,000 stars on GitHub, forgive the typo. And companies like Microsoft, Airbus, and Diesel, and the Dow Jones actually use Ionic. So this is a Microsoft application. Untapped is an Ionic app, SWORKit, and also this is the Dow Jones using Ionic. So, how do you get started with Ionic? Simply install Ionic from the CLI. You start an application like that. You give it a name and a blank template. You seed into your app, and you run Ionic serve. 4 commands. Don't believe me? Okay, let's see this in action. Let's actually go ahead and see this. So, what should we call our application? Anybody? Any takers? Any takers? Everybody can see my terminal? Good. Okay, so I'm gonna go to desktop. By the way, I have an accent thing, so if you hear me say desktop, I actually mean desktop. It's just too late for me to revert to that. Exactly. Forgive me, I had African education. Exactly. So, what should we call our application? Anybody? ngVikings. Pretty good, pretty original. So, let's go and say, we're just gonna go to Ionic, and we're gonna say start, and we're gonna say ng, Vikings. And we're going to use a template. We can use a tab template. We can use a blank template. We can use a side menu template. So let me actually go ahead and use the tabs template. And I'm just going to click enter. And it's asking me if I want to integrate. And I'm just going to say, for now, yes. And this is going to go ahead and do its magic. And I trust the internet because the one country I trust internet, or the one region in the world I trust internet, is Scandinavia. And yes, so we'll go ahead, and this will go ahead and run like some npm install. Imagine if it's the one time that this actually slows down because I've jinxed it. And okay, so we're done. Do we want to do this? No, we don't want to. So we're going to cd into our app, ngVikings. And I'm just going to say Ionic Lab, because Ionic Serve and Ionic Lab pretty much do the same thing, but Ionic Lab basically takes it to a mobile view. And let's go ahead and see what's going on there. And we wait for this, and the build. And the build is gone. It's done so its host is running on localhost 8100. So let's go ahead and see what localhost 8100 is. So localhost 8100. Lab. Yes, there we go. So if you actually go to localhost 8100, we're actually going to see this. So let's actually open all of them. So here we see 3 applications. I haven't coded anything. Everybody can see. I have not coded anything, but just by starting the app, I have the same code running on here. Who can tell me, what do you think this platform is? Good, iOS. And this one? Good. And that. So you can already see how, if you have an Android device, you can already identify to which application is yours. But here we're running the exact same code running ahead. So let's actually go ahead and do something cool to our application quickly. So we're just going to go back and open. So I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to say ngVikings. I'm going to open this here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something cool. So I have this API that is running somewhere. My JSON. So forgive me. Let me just make this full screen. I have this API here in one of my applications. And I'm just going to open this on the side. Oh, here, sorry. So I'm going to open my test application. Basically, my test application is in case anything goes wrong, I can just revert to that one. And I'm just going to open that. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to come here and copy this. This is basically an API that I have hosted, a real-life API that I have hosted. So just to be sure that I'm not being shady, this is like a real JSON API that we can meet, and it has a bunch of movies that I really, really like. So let's go ahead and actually do that in our Ionic application quickly. So ngVikings, we're just going to go here. It's a standard application, Angular application. I'm just going to open the page here. I'm going to go to the home page in the home.ts here. first of all, I want to make a HTTP call. So I'm going to open the module. And inside of my import statement, I'm just going to add the HTTP client module. So now I have the HTTP client module available. And that's auto imports available for me thanks to my great IDE. And I'm just going to open the TS here. I'm going to inject here, private HTTP client. And I'm just going to say HTTP client. And basically, I'm just going to make a property public. Let me just call it films. And I'm just going to make this as an any. So it's going to be an observable. So I'm just going to say this, that, film equals this, that, HTTP client. And I'm just going to make a get call. And remember, I already have a string, so my API call. So this is going to return me an observable. So what do I actually want to do with that observable? I'm just going to go here and delete all that dummy data. And I'm just going to call something called the Ion card. And inside the Ion card, I have the Ion card header. And here, I'm just going to say the Ion card content. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do an ngFor. And I'm going to say let film of films. And because films is an observable, I'm just going to wrap this inside the async pipe so that I don't have to go ahead and unbundle it from myself. So I'm just going to add that in the async pipe. And here in the header, I'm just going to say film dot. So let's actually go ahead and see what this data looks like. And I have it actually here. So this is what the property looks like. So I want to have the title and the poster, right? So I'm just going to say film dot title with a capital T. And in here, in the content, I'm just going to go ahead and add an image, img tag, and I'm going to bind the source property equals film dot poster. Looks good? Looks pretty okay? Okay? So let's go ahead and see if we've broken something here. So we're going to go back and see. So here we are. We have our movies show up. Fantastic Beasts, Jungle Book, Suicide Squad, one of the most terrible movies of all time. You know, so really, really great movies and stuff like that. We have Vikings, Valhalla. Exactly. Of course, I would always have Vikings. So this is pretty good, right? So let's go back to our slides. And after this, we can say we've solved our mobile problem because we have an app already running on iOS, Android, and Windows. Good? Everybody agree? We've solved our mobile problem. And if I run that on an emulator, that would work as well. So let's solve the web problem now. So the problem with the web is all about adapting to screen sizes because this is what you have. All web. You have to adapt to screen sizes. So consider also different inputs, just like this, or mice, or somebody could be using a smart TV as well. You don't forget about accessibility. You know, you need to understand that some people access the web differently with accessible needs, and you need to also support that. So let's go ahead and solve that. Again, let's go back to Game of Thrones. Good. So the problem with the web is we have this great application here, but as soon as I take this guy and put him on full screen, we're going to see this guy. Everybody hates this guy. Everybody hates this guy. Don't you hate it when you go to a website and you see this? So how do we solve this? Ionic has a grid system. Oh my God, I didn't know that. Okay, good. Let's go ahead and use that grid system. And we're going to go here. So I'm just actually going to save myself some time. I'm going to just copy it from what I actually already done. I'm just going to copy that grid. And I'm going to paste it here just to save ourselves some time. And basically what we're doing here, we're just looping. We're having the same loop here. I'm just going to copy this loop here, put it here. And what we've just done is added a grid. And we're going to take this Ion card. And we're just going to take this and paste it into the Ion card. And what we're just doing here is we actually have a grid, right? We're using a grid, we're making a row, and we're using columns. We're saying 12 columns, you know, but if it's on a small screen, a really small screen, take all of the entire 12 columns. If it's on a medium screen, split it into two. One column should take 6 rows, right? If it's on a large screen, one column should take 4. If it's on an extra large screen, one column should take 3. That way you have 4. So the bigger the screen, the more stuff you can see, which makes sense. So let's just save this, and then let's actually go ahead and run this again. So now we have this, which is way, way much better. I think we've actually done our ngFor on the wrong place. But hey, this is what we want to do. We can see how now we have this. We should be doing it on the row level so that we would have like multiple stuff. But here we can see now how we have this resizable application. So if I actually shrink the screen, you can see that shrinking. And I keep going like that. And then when we go to one screen, we have that. So now our app automatically adapts, right? So without spending too much time, we're just going to skip that. And we're going to go ahead to back to the slides. And we can say we've solved this problem, right? We've solved that. But the problem is we haven't supported PWA, right? So what are PWAs? You're hearing it every day on Twitter. Everybody's talking about PWA. It's one of those things where a lot of people are talking about it, but only a few people are actually doing PWAs. Let's be honest, in the real world. And it's basically a progressive web application. It's your web application being able to run offline. It's as simple as that. It's being able to run offline. You can install it on a normal mobile phone, but when you get the updates, like every other website, it just updates. It runs full screen with a splash screen and icon, and thanks to the manifest.json. So this is the state of offline in 2018. We've sent men to the moon. We have invented artificial intelligence. You know, we've eradicated smallpox. Yet, this is the best thing you can do when you don't have internet. This is the best offline experience ever. Like, this is as good as it gets. Like, this is the best thing you can do today when you're offline. Which is just like, come on, guys. Like, we have a guy that's sending stuff to space. And this is what we have? Imagine if, the space shuttle loses internet. What's going to happen then? So how does this work? Thanks to the Serviceworker. The Serviceworker is a new browser standard that sits between your app and the server and can cache requests. So it's a proxy, and it allows you to cache unlimited data on your device, and it solves the flaky connection problem, which is Li-Fi. Does anybody know what Li-Fi is? Yeah, Li-Fi is when you have 2 bars on your phone and you think you have data. No, your phone is lying to you. It's just like, oh, let me find some data somewhere, but I'm going to lie to you that I have connection. That's Li-Fi. So let's go see this demo in action. So we're just going to go here. Okay, we're just going to go here. And so we're going to take this, actually, ngFor here, and remove this ngFor here so that our app is fixed. So if we actually go back to our app now, and sorry, let's go here. Our app is actually here. So now we actually fixed our app. It's not duplicating anymore. So for you to make this a PWA, this is the simplest PWA experience I'll ever show you. All I need to come here and do is just uncomment this line right here, and uncomment this line right here. Literally, it's the simplest PWA. And this is built into every Ionic application. By just doing this, the service worker would get created and registered. And we go back to our application here. Now we have a progressive web app. How do I know this? Because if I inspect the element and I go to application, I can see service worker here. Okay, I think my Chrome is crashing because of like the 9,000 things on my application. But we actually do have a service worker registered here. Yeah, we can see the service worker. How do I know this is true? I'm going to do something really bold, which you should never do. Do not try this at home. Do not try this at home. I promise you, you don't want to try this at home. So let's actually just see this. Okay, so we can see this running, right? Okay, we've refreshed. I'm going to go and turn off my Wi-Fi. Okay, this is going to go so wrong, isn't it? All right, so now I'm going to go and refresh. So now I've turned on my Wi-Fi. If I try to go to, the best football team in the world, Arsenal.com, that's probably why they don't win, because they're always offline. Exactly. But let's go ahead and refresh my application. Voila. We still see our app running offline. Remember, guys, I don't have Wi-Fi. Like, I can still have the best experience. Hey! By the way, you can beat my high score here. And we've done this. So now let's go ahead and bring back our Wi-Fi. We should probably do that. So now if we go back to the slides quickly and round up, we've actually solved this problem, right? We solved the PWA problem. What else is left? The big boy, desktop. Desktop is actually pretty similar to the web, because with desktop, you have a lot in common. It's just about screen sizes, because different people have different monitors. Some of you here have like these incredible monitors that take up the whole room, and you need to support that. Offline is a must for desktop. If you don't have offline, go home for desktop. Imagine if you wanted to use Photoshop on your computer and you was like, oh, I need an internet connection. You'd totally not pay your money. And OS X, Windows, and Linux all have different UI skins as well, right? And how do you ensure reusability within each desktop? Guys, we've seen 6 applications. We've only written code once. Let me just remind you. So how do we solve desktop? This guy. Electron, because Electron is sort of like the Cordova for the desktop. It's open source, it supports cross-platform mobile desktop development, uses web technologies, and it supports OS X and Linux. Some of the Electron apps you use today without even knowing. These are Electron applications. Slack and Visual Studio Code are built with Electron. So, demo time. Let's go. Wakanda forever. So let's go ahead and see this. So how do we go to Electron? So I have actually not really worked with Electron much, but let's just pretend I've never worked with Electron. So I'm just going to go to electron.com, right? Not that Electron. So I'm just going to go to this guy here, and he says go to the GitHub page here. So I'm just going to go to the GitHub here, and we can see the Electron Quick Start. We can actually go to the Quick Starter, so we just need to come here and clone this Quick Starter. Because I trust the internet, I'm just actually going to download the zip file of this. I'm just going to show this in my Finder, and I'm going to drag this to my desktop. And we're going to round up now, so I'm just going to unpack this. And all I need to do is come here, open this here. This is the Electron application. All I need to do is npm install here, which will go ahead and get me all the Electron stuff. And how do I actually use this with the Electron? All I need to do is, in the main.js here, I can actually pass it a path to my, Electron application. So for me to go to index.html here, I'm just going to go copy this. I'm just going to go here, like backwards. And I'm just going to go to ngVikings. ngVikings, so... Okay. So I'm going to go to ngVikings, and I'm going to go to, inside ngVikings, I'm going to go to source, and I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to, www, and I'm going to go to index.html. So I'm just going to go to ngVikings. I'm going to go to www and /index.html. So to run this, I'm just actually going to do npm start. And this is what's going to happen. And now we have a real application running on our desktop. This is a real desktop application. And it has all those things that we built in, using the same code, running now. So we've actually gone ahead, and we can actually quickly round up. We've actually gone ahead to solve that problem there. So I thought that was awesome. That was like a lot of fire. And other things to be aware of quickly, the stencil.js, which is basically a build tool. And then you have the Ionic Pro tools, which you can check more about. It allows you to do a lot of the pro stuff. And my bold predictions, PWAs will be accepted to the App Store within the next year. That's my prediction. The end of JavaScript frameworks is coming. Soon we wouldn't be killing each other about, are you React, are you Ember, are you Backbone if you still use it? We're just going to all get along. PWAs will make it to your Mac or Linux computer. Actually, they're already in Chrome OS. The concept of desktop application as you know it is going to change pretty soon. And the web will be the new native thanks to WebAssembly. Shameless promotion, I'm building UI School, which is a place you can go learn how to become a developer. We call it production-driven development, so you can go check ui.school if you're interested. And some of the things that I used for this talk, Ionic side, the Electron.js, my blog, and my Twitter. And if there are any questions, I'll be around. You can come ahead and ask me for any questions. But it's been a pleasure for ngVikings. Thank you very, very much. And it was great talking to all of you. Thank you very much.